Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate the invitation to be here. Thanks, B-Dubs, as well. This is great. I'm super excited. So welcome, everyone, to Navigating GRC Technology Implementations. This is your Survivor's Guide. My name is Alana Boyajian, and like I said, I'm super excited to be here tonight. I'm going to share with you some of my experience with deploying technology solutions. I've deployed products for small teams all the way to global implementations, over 100,000 users. And really, this will have a bent focusing on the GRC space, but this guide is really going to help you with bringing any new solution into your environment. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So key takeaways. So what I hope that you're going to get coming out of this is an understanding of how to define requirements for product evaluation, then learn how to actually evaluate the products and select a vendor. And when we look at vendors, we want to look at those who are not only able to technically address all of your requirements, but also ones that are good business partners. And so we'll talk through that. I hope you get some tips for implementing robust change management so that users will actually use their system. And then we're going to talk about a phased approach to deployment. All right, the agenda. So I'm just going to briefly give you a little bit of background of who I am. We're going to talk about the GRC landscape, how it's evolved a little bit over the last several years, and then we'll go through each of those items: the product evaluation, working with vendors, change management, deployment, and then we'll hit Q&A. All right, this is me. So you can hop over to my LinkedIn. I've got it here. Go ahead, please connect with me. You can check out my professional history. And throughout my journey, one of the things that I've really deeply valued is the power that building relationships across the business, within teams, with external partners, like how vital that is to bring about success. And that, along with, I guess, I don't know, my nerdiness for process and frameworks and continuous improvement, it's kind of how I landed in the world of GRC, as I think many of you can relate to. So currently, I'm on an amazing GRC team. I work in the hospitality industry, and I get to work with top talent and do some really cool things. So I'll share just a little bit about what I do, which is I do implementations of GRC technology as well as other cool things as well. But before this, I was an IT and cybersecurity project manager. So I really kind of love blending these two worlds together and then bringing you this content. So hopefully you'll be able to get some tips for your next tech implementation. All right, the evolving GRC landscape. So we're going to talk a little bit about this complex world, about finding the right governance, risk, and compliance technology solution for you and how you can create a blueprint for a successful implementation. And I didn't just like magically know how to do this. Like I just happened to be at the time in my career, I was the youngest person on the team, and they're like, you're young, you do technology, go do this. And I was like, okay, I had no idea what I was doing. So you may find yourself on a team where you're asked to automate processes, deploy a company-wide phishing awareness and training program, or you're just tired of the Excel wizardry and you need to level up to keep up. So I'm hoping that what we talk about today is going to come in handy and possibly when you least expect it. So we all know that GRC today is no longer a nice to have. It's a critical component of sustainable success in any organization. And you all know this. And simply put, GRC is about aligning your organization's strategy with its operations and managing risk effectively across the entire enterprise. And so choosing and implementing the right GRC solution, it can feel really daunting because what you're going to find when you start to check out the marketplace is it is now flooded with options, and every vendor will tell you that they can solve your problem. So how do you sift through the noise? How do you ensure that the solution you pick actually fits your needs and helps to solve your particular pain points? And that's what we're going to talk through today. So I'm going to walk through this kind of practical guide, how to navigate all these challenges, and you'll be able to deploy your solution successfully. So let's get some context here around what we're talking about when we're talking about GRC solutions. So as you can imagine, just as organizations are finally understanding the importance of GRC, so are tech vendors. So the playing field a few years ago was pretty slim and sparse. So there were some big players. Auditboard's been around for a while. MetricStream, Archer, ServiceNow. They've got a GRC component or module. And what we're seeing now is that there's more and more solutions entering the marketplace. And many of them have similar features like policies and standards management, risk management, auditing capabilities, dashboards and reporting. And so I've got here, we've got some well-known GRC vendors here, and I'm certainly not recommending any one product over another. This list is not complete, but I really just wanted to kind of give you an idea of the products that are in the space. And what I'm seeing as I'm going to conferences, that there's many niche players out there, and there's a lot of solutions that are really taking notes on what people don't like about some of the products that have been around for a while. So there's some really exciting things in this space to look forward to. Additionally, there's a bunch of phishing and awareness training vendors out there: ClickArmor, Cofense, HawksHunt, KnowBe4, Ningio, Proofpoint. Lots of really cool features in all of these products. So there's a lot to sift through, a lot to look at. And the quote unquote best GRC solution is really going to depend on your specific needs and priorities. So don't get caught up in sort of the big name, but really focus on finding the solution that best fits your organization size, your industry, the risk profile of your organization, the budget. I mean, you can't buy something if you don't have the money for it. And then you've got to look at your existing IT stack to see where it's going to fit in. So how do you pick? So let's go ahead and talk through the product evaluation process and how you find the right fit. Defining requirements. So this is really one of the most crucial steps. You really want to clearly define your business needs and your technical requirements. So I'm going to get in and give you some examples on what that means and how to do it. So this is not just about listing features. It's about understanding your specific pain points. What is the problem you're trying to solve? How can a GRC solution address them? So a couple of areas that you're going to want to consider. You're going to want to look at the specific GRC domains. Are you primarily focused on risk management, compliance, audit, a combination of these? Or, you might need like a holistic solution that can automate processes across all of these areas. So each domain has unique requirements, and you need to look at products because one product may excel in one domain versus another domain. And in some cases, and I've seen this, a product may have been built to manage risk, for example, but then they bought another company that has a compliance solution, and now they're bolted together. So you need to ask these kinds of questions because that may impact how well the product functions seamlessly as a whole. Integration. A standalone solution that can potentially create data silos across your organization. So do you need information to flow from this new system you're implementing to another workflow system? Or does the new tool need to consume data from other enterprise tools? So all these things you're going to need to consider. So you need to look at the API integrations, integrations potentially with external business intelligence tools or analytics platforms and other enterprise platforms as well. Scalability and performance. Will the solution scale with your growing business? How much data does it need to handle? How many users? And don't just think about today. Think about where your company's going in 1, 3, or 5 years from now. So what does the user base look like then? What do the data needs look like then? So you need to consider uptime requirements and the data growth factor in here. Reporting and analytics. This is great. You can have a ton of data in your system, but if you can't get nice reports that give you actionable intel, what can you do with that data? So you really want a solution that's going to be able to provide you these insightful reports and dashboards to help you with your decision making. So some things to consider here. Are there pre-built reports for common regulatory requirements like SOX, GDPR, HIPAA, your risk framework? This can save you a lot of time and effort, because otherwise you're going to have to build these reports yourself. Additionally, are there custom reporting capabilities? Maybe your CISO likes a risk report in a very specific format. So how easy would it be for you to build something like that? Is it drag and drop? Do you need to code? Do you have to export it to Power BI and then have your friend that is a Power BI nerd create a report for you after you do a favor for them? So these are all things that you need to think about, as well as interactive dashboards. So it's one thing to have something on the screen, but can you drill down into the data? Can you slice and dice the data and look at it from different perspectives? So just things to kind of consider as you're embarking on this journey. So what I like to do is I just like brainstorm, all of the questions, all of the issues, all the pain points and features and functionality, all the capabilities, and then I just kind of categorize them to create a structure. And that really helps build out the requirements component. All right, let's talk about requirements. So we could do a whole session about defining requirements. I was a requirements analyst for years. But first, let's talk about what a requirement is. So in very simple terms, it's just a descriptive statement of what the product has to do or what it has to be like. And so one thing that you're going to need to do is just be really descriptive about how you're defining your requirements. And you want to do this upfront. You want to be able to effectively evaluate your different GRC solutions, apples to apples, and choose one, obviously, that best fits your organization unique needs. But in order to do that, you're going to need to have requirements that then you can kind of have a bake-off and say, yes, this solution A is able to do this requirement, but solution B can't do that requirement. So a couple of tips here is you want to be specific. So you want to avoid vague statements and you want to use quantifiable metrics wherever you can and provide specific examples. You want to be able to prioritize your requirements. What are your must-haves? What are your nice-to-haves? Those things help you focus your evaluation. This is a big one. You want to involve your stakeholders. You want to get input from as many potential stakeholders who are using the solution. And this could be not only the end users, not only the folks who are in GRC, but leadership who's going to be consuming reports. If it's a solution that might be potentially on-prem or maybe in your hybrid cloud, how is that going to be supported? So you've got to include your tech support as well. So you've got your users, your leadership, and then any other tangential groups that may have a hand in this tool is going to be a stakeholder. So you want to make sure that they are included in building out your requirements. And then think about the future. So how might your needs evolve over the next few years? So I've got a couple examples here that you can read. So I'll just go through maybe like the first one. The solution must support PCI compliance requirements. So it's got to have automated control testing and documentation for payment card compliance. And this one, it's critical for your company if you process credit card payments. But also think about it. If your company doesn't do that now, but you know that they're going to be doing it in 3 to 5 years, you're going to want this feature because you don't want to bring in a solution that can't meet this requirement. And then in a couple of years, you're going to have to figure out a way to handle the PCI component. Your solution must be able to handle a user base of at least 500 employees and maintain acceptable performance levels. So that's another thing. Where are your users? Are they all over the globe? So you have to make sure that wherever this is going to be stored, is this going to be able to meet those requirements? And then requirements around compliance regulations that impact your business, custom report generation. Again, here with the integration. This one is a nice to have. The solution should have the ability to integrate with Salesforce, but it's not going to be a deal breaker if it doesn't. So just a couple of examples here of how to write requirements, and each one is very discrete. I like to call them atomic. They only deal with one item and one thing. Okay. So you've got your requirements, and let's take a look at how we're going to evaluate products. So I do encourage you to spend a lot of time on the requirements because that's really going to be the baseline activity for the whole evaluation process. So let's take a look at some potential solutions. So how do we do that? Your company may have like subscription to Gartner or Forrester research. And that can be really helpful in identifying key features and benefits, as well as who are the key players and the key vendors in the field. So a couple of ways that you can get the information you need to narrow down the playing field is to do an RFI. So and that stands for request for information. And then you may have heard RFP, which is a request for proposal. And you may not be doing all of these things in this list in this particular order, but we'll talk through that. So an RFI is really just sending a questionnaire, like a standardized questionnaire, to maybe 5 to 8 potential vendors, asking about their company, their GRC solution capabilities, their experience in your industry. And really what you're wanting to do is you want to use this to create a short list of vendors who seem like a good fit for you. But also when you do something like this, the vendors are going to start blowing up your mailbox. So just know that. All right. So once you have a short list, then you're going to want to do an RFP. And that goes deeper. So that's a request for proposal. This is where you outline every single requirement and ask the vendors to provide detailed proposals on how their solution is going to meet your requirements. They're going to include pricing. They're going to include implementation plans. They're going to include how they support the product and what their support services look like. So this RFP process really allows for that structured comparison of different solutions, and this will get you to that apples and apples. All right, demos and trials. Seeing is believing. So demos will let you see that software in action. Vendors typically are going to highlight their key features, how they address common GRC challenges. And also, you're normally going to have a call with them in advance so that they can tailor their demo to address your particular pain point. So it's a value add for you. So when these are happening, pay close attention to the user interface. How intuitive is it? And whether it aligns with your user's technical skills. Demos are free. Vendors are happy to do it. And that's what their sales teams are for. Hands-on trial, even better than a demo, is if they give you an account and you can kind of get a chance to test drive the software. You can check out some of the features. It's probably not going to be everything. It might be for a week or two. You might be able to input some of your own data. And they are limited, but they do provide some value in the solution's usability and whether or not it might meet some of your requirements. I mentioned this earlier, but independent analyst firms like Gartner and Forrester, I think IDC is another one. They publish reports evaluating various solutions. And these reports are going to give you insights to market trends, vendor strengths, vendor weaknesses, and key considerations for solutions. Many of you may be very familiar with the Gartner Magic Quadrant. That's another good tool as well. There's also peer reviews, case studies. You may even be able to talk with one of their current customers and get some insight. And that would be really cool because then you can get some real life insight into what it's like working with that vendor and how the implementation went. And even better, if there's time and you have a test environment and technical support, I'm spoiled, I have these things. A proof of concept can go further than a trial. So really what you do is you're going to get the vendor to help you implement a version of that solution in your own test environment. You're going to use your own data and you can focus on specific use cases and just kind of hammer on that tool and see if it's going to work for you. And one of the cool things about doing a proof of concept is you can identify early any potential implementation gotchas before you do a full-scale rollout. So by combining all of these techniques, you can get a really good understanding of the products that are out there, and you can get that list down to maybe 2, 3, 4 potential vendors that may have a solution that works for you. All right. So you've got your requirements and you worked your butt off to get a really good solid list of requirements. You've stepped through product demos. So you've seen everything out in the marketplace. You've done an RFI. Maybe you've done a proof of concept. You've dropped your RFP. Now you've got to pick something. So when you're going through the selection process, consider some of these things. Features and functionality. So of course, does it meet your specific requirements that you defined? And for the ones that are not met, you need to ask yourself, can you live without it? Or one other thing is, maybe the vendor doesn't have it now, but it's on the roadmap. So you might only have to wait a couple months until it's going to be integrated into your tool. So those are things that you're going to want to ask your vendor as well. It's like, if you don't have XYZ, are you going to have it? Is it in your back? Usability and user experience. Is it intuitive and easy to use? If it's complicated, nobody's going to use it. And so you need to also think about how much training you might need to provide to get this thing off the ground. Security and compliance, our favorite words, right? Does it meet industry standards for data security and privacy as well? So I'm thinking things like, are they ISO compliant? Do they have a SOC 2 type 2? What do their scans come back as well as your company policies. I know many companies will have a cybersecurity policy baked into the contract process, and we'll talk about that. So those are all things that you want to look at. And then the vendor reputation and support. And you'll get a sense of this when you're going through this process, because throughout this whole process, you're talking to vendors, you're going back and forth in emails because they want your business, right? So you know which ones are really attuned and that you're vibing with, and ones that are kind of flaky and not really giving you what you need. So is the vendor reliable and responsive? Were they just bought? Is their financial outlook stable? You don't want your vendor to go bankrupt and then you're stuck with a product that has no support and no future. So ultimately, the best GRC solution isn't just about like ticking off features on a checklist. You really want to find this right fit. So we've talked about prioritizing the functionality that aligns with your specific needs, ensuring the solution offers a positive user experience, because that will really help with adoption. And then you want to verify that it meets all of the security and compliance standards to protect your sensitive data. And you want to partner with a reputable vendor who provides reliable support and is invested in your long-term success, because this is really going to be a partnership. So we're going to get into that now. So working with vendors. All right, so let's pull on that thread a little bit. Selecting the right vendor is just as important as selecting the right product, in my opinion. So let's talk about building those strong partnerships. So in vendor selection, like I said, you're not just buying the software, you're entering into this partnership. So you really want to choose a vendor who understands your business, who shares your values and is committed to your success. Like, they know where you're going and they're like, let's do this together. That will really make a great partnership. And then after you make a selection, you are going to have to negotiate that contract. So don't rush this process. Actually, I don't think there is a way to rush this process, especially if legal's involved. It does take a lot of time. So some of the things that you're going to want to consider here are your service level agreements. So these are expectations and support response times. So let me think of some examples. Okay. So for example, like the vendor guarantees 99.99 uptime. What happens if you have a critical issue? How quickly will the vendor respond to you? Are you going to have to wait a week, or are they going to get back to you in an hour? What happens if something goes down? Does the vendor do a backup every day and they can commit to an RTO of 24 hours, a recovery time objective of 24 hours? So those are all things that you are going to want to bake into the contract as well. Data ownership and privacy. So your data, unless it's on-prem, is probably going to be in a cloud somewhere. So it's either going to be in your hybrid cloud, your private cloud, or more and more, it's going to be SaaS and it's going to be in the vendor's cloud. So you need to make sure that the cybersecurity controls that they have in place are going to protect your data. And also you need to make sure that you retain ownership of that data no matter where it lives. And then the other big thing you're going to want to consider is, what if when you end that contract, say you've used the product for 5 years, there's another great product out there and you're going to migrate. What happens to that data when the contract ends? How quickly are they going to either return it to you or destroy it? So you're going to want to have that all in the contract. And then of course, support and maintenance terms. So you're going to want to understand what services they provide here. This can be upgrades, bug fixes, how frequently these happen, what kind of disruption and notice you get. All of these things you're going to want to understand. And ongoing vendor management. So the relationship, it's not going to end after you deploy into production. You've been building this relationship. You've been going through months and months and months of evaluating products, and you're picked one and now you're going to implement it. So it's in production, but what that's really just the beginning of this journey that you're going on with the vendor. So you want to make sure that you're establishing these clear communication channels and have regular touch points with your product success contact. So you want to make sure that there's ongoing alignment, that they're addressing any issues proactively. So really when you're building these strong vendor partnerships, and I've seen this, it's actually great when it comes time to adding new features, because of course, no product's going to have everything you want. But if you have a great relationship with your vendor, you can say, hey vendor, we need XYZ, and they'll be the first to add that to the backlog. And sometimes they might even ask you to be the first to try out some new functionality. And I see many vendors drive their product backlog directly from customer feedback. So if you have that good relationship with your vendor, your stuff is going to the top of that. All right. So just going to reiterate a couple things here. So again, vendor partnerships, it's not just about contracts and service levels. It's really about people, which I equate to being just like GRC. So this open communication, this trust, and this shared commitment to success. So really focus on being proactive, building these relationships, and work collaboratively. And you'll really see the benefits on both sides, and it'll help you achieve your goals. All right. People do not like change, but sometimes we have to do it, right? So how do we make the best of it? So even an amazing GRC product or any IT solution really is going to fail if the employees don't adopt it. So that's where change management comes in. And the importance of change management is really the process. So it's going to involve significant changes to processes and workflows. So you're used to email chains and Excel jockeying and spreadsheet chaos. So change management is going to help minimize the disruption and ensure a smooth transition. Because if you're going from very manual process to automated processes, you need to bring everyone along very slowly and very consistently. So let's talk about some of the activities in change management that will help you be successful here. Stakeholder communication. So again, you've identified your stakeholders at the beginning, and they were a key part of your requirements process. And many of them may have been on the team that helped you evaluate and select the product. And sometimes the stakeholders change over time as you learn new things as you're going on the journey. So you need to make sure you know your users, you know who the invested leadership is. You've got tech support on your side. So you identify all these key stakeholders, and you're going to want to develop a communication plan to keep them informed and provide a forum for them to engage with you and share any concerns and needs and questions. And you're going to want to clearly communicate any timelines for when things are going. So training and user adoption. So you're going to want to provide comprehensive training to ensure that your users are going to be proficient in using the system. And actually, the vendor may have stuff out of the box and support some of this. But you can create one-pagers, step-by-step guides. You can have webinars, casual coffee chats, anything like that. So Q&A, just giving different avenues for folks to get training and then also ask questions. And there are going to be people who are resistant to change, and they're going to be your problem children, but they'll come around one day. So you may have to do some hand-holding here, but really just proactively address any concerns. And when you get that sense of resistance to change, just have a conversation and find out really what's going on underneath the hood. Again, this goes back to stakeholder communication, and you want to make sure that people really feel comfortable coming to you with any questions or concerns. So I'm a big proponent of communication. I think it's crucial for successful change management. You're going to want to plan it out. Work with your technology change management team if you have one. Work with your internal communications team if you have one. They're going to help you craft the right message. So you can use a variety of channels. There's email. You can have meetings, training sessions. You're going to want to reach stakeholders in a variety of different places and make sure that everyone's on the same page and know what is happening when it is happening. All right, we've got a product. We're going to go to production with it. All right, so let's get this GRC solution into production. You've done your due diligence. Contracts are signed. Stakeholders are waiting for the go live date, and you're ready to deploy. So there's a number of different deployment models. We touched upon a couple of them: on-prem, cloud, hybrid, and this would likely have been defined in your requirements early on. But here you need to consider, if it is on-prem, do you have in-house staff to support? And hopefully you know the answer to this well before you go to deployment. But you need to make sure that they also know what's going on when the system's being deployed and are ready and able to support your system. So more and more you're going to see SaaS vendors, or it's going to be in your company cloud. And that might have some lightweight support requirements, not like a full on-prem. So you're going to want to select the best deployment model for your organization needs and the resources that you have. Okay, a phased rollout. So this is what I tend to prefer, this phased approach, if there's time in your schedule. So you want to start with a pilot group or a limited set of users, maybe 5, 10, 20, depending on how big or small your user base is. And just roll it out to a couple of users. Maybe don't even turn on all of the features and functionalities. So that will allow you to kind of slow roll this, get some feedback, make some tweaks, and then you can bring on additional users and roll out additional functionality. And that way you'll get a better idea of what issues you're going to have versus just doing a full-scale rollout and potentially have a debacle on your hands that you have to fix, which I've done before. So that'll be another session. All right, testing and QA. So you want to make sure that you test to make sure that the system's working correctly and it's meeting your requirements. So there may be some configurations and things that have to get tweaked along the way. You're going to want to do functional testing, integration testing. Are those APIs working? Is the data that you need piped in and the data that needs to get piped out, is all of that working the way that you expect? And check in with your users, give them a guide, a user acceptance guide, and have them check off, 15, 20 things to make sure things are working from their perspective. And then after you do deployment, you're going to want to conduct a post-implementation review. And this is going to assess the success of the project overall. You're going to identify some areas of improvement, and that will help you optimize the system and ensure that it's going to meet your evolving needs. So I think that is it. That is all I got. So hopefully this provided you with some valuable insights for how to navigate the GRC tech maze. So again, remember, choosing and implementing the right GRC solution, it's not a destination, it is a journey. So hopefully I've given you some tips and tricks that will help you have a successful implementation and build a strong foundation, not only technically, but with your stakeholders and vendors. So good luck to you all, and I'm happy to take some questions.